Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfuck Your Mind. I'm your host, Zach Lyotis. In today's podcast, I have Mike Popovici. Mike is a mystery school guide, Qigong, and mindfulness instructor, healer, and founder of Phoenix Internal Arts Academy. His passion is to help people improve their quality of their lives and make the breakthroughs they want for themselves physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, so they can bring the most of themselves into everything they do, with families, career, hobbies, and personal passions. Mike demystifies concepts of energy and helps you tap into their full effects and self-healing potential in your everyday. In order to follow his passion at bringing these essential tools to everyone, Mike left his corporate career as an engineer, having studied various of other healing arts as yoga, Vipassana, Reiki, and various other energy-oriented and meditative techniques, to name a few. His broad range of experience allows Mike to guide and heal from many perspectives and to all types of lifestyles, both practical and spiritual. Hello, Michael. Welcome to the podcast.
Zach. Thank you for having me. I am so honored to be here with you and to be on your podcast. So thank you very, very much.
I'm happy that you're here because Awaken Men Mondays has been birthed because of my love for men, and really allowing the men to be in their true, authentic birthright. And we've had this conversation before the podcast even started. Mm-hmm. So I want you to go back to what you were speaking about when it came to the men and healing through the heart and recognizing their strength, because this is something that really was a great foundation for this podcast. And I want you to really take everyone there once again.
Okay, yeah. The whole men and the heart thing has been kind of confusing the way it's been portrayed to us as a society for a long time, because when it came to the heart, we always saw a soft portrayal of what the heart is all about. And so this heart-centric living, I mean, for me, I come from, I might be a healer, teacher and everything right now, but I come from playing rugby, working out, and living that really the old school guy life, right? And engineer, corporate thing, the whole chasing the corporate ladder titles. So having heard those things in my past life, in my previous way of being, I was like, what are you trying to be? You're trying to turn me into a woman? Like, you're trying to make me feminine? And this is still a prevailing perspective, is if you're going to be from the heart, you have to be more feminine. And couldn't be further from the truth, because the masculine also comes through the heart. It's just as there's nothing, I can't say no, it's not nothing, but there's very few examples in this world of what it actually means to project masculine energy and masculine strength through the heart. There's very little, it's very confusing, and it's very, there's got a lot of confusion from what people pretend to portray as that. And so the feminine within us, because all of us, we all have masculine and feminine.
Absolutely. So
there is a requirement to tap, as a man, you have to learn to tap into your feminine. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean you have to be feminine, but you have to tap into it, which is what we talked about before, right? You're saying the same. It's about allowing emotion, allowing yourself to be quote unquote vulnerable, which I know we're gonna get into you and I today, because it's so much power that comes from doing that. It's ridiculous. So there's zero vulnerability, but anyways, once you start to understand how to come into your heart, the feminine within you will help you get there. But when you start to project masculine energy through the heart, or from a heart-based perspective, you are a man. But it's like a masculine energy is an outward energy. So you will then feel yourself be centered, calm, but a man unapologetically, right?
And your full power and your full potential and your full knowingness of who you are, and not the imprint or beliefs that were imprinted in you from childhood. Exactly.
But that's the challenge that we all have, is to let go of those beliefs, right? We all know that in one way or another, but as men, the value that has been put on us, or the way that we have been taught to value ourselves, is so based on ego type aspects. Yes. How do you let go of that when the world still projects onto you that you are valuable only if you have a job, that pays a lot. So you got to have a high paying job and a high title. You have to be physically showing strength. You have to drive the nice cars, have the big house. It's all about a projection of wealth that is supposed to be what a man is, because a man, even energetically, a man is a provider type energy, right? Absolutely. And so how do you overcome the ego interpretation of that when the world puts so much emphasis on you still being that? Because you start to, the challenge that most men will have going through that, and I had this challenge, and I just had the privilege of speaking to a few very, very enlightened dudes about how they went through the challenge of losing their self-value. Mm-hmm. But that happens. But you almost have to go through that. No, okay. Oh, for the guys listening right here, you don't necessarily have to go through that, but it's a bit of that. Through the growth, it's a bit of what can happen. You will have a feeling of, oh my God, I'm throwing away my value. What's my value? What's my value? But then you start to switch into understanding your value is completely different than what the world has told you it is.
And that's the thing, right? And this is something why this podcast has come to life. It was a podcast that came down to me. I call it by the Adonis in higher realms, because it was like, okay, man, seriously, we know that there's a lot of suffering, not only in the divine masculine alone, but in the female masculine aspect of the woman, right? Mm-hmm. The woman, like I said earlier, we had our rise in 2018, but we also have damaged our men in that process because we put men in some sort of a category, and not all men are built alike. Not all men are going to be triggers to you because your ex-boyfriend caused an effect. Now you're bringing that same issue into your present relationship because you have this visual in your head, or all men come from the same breed. And when I work with women and say, okay, you need to let go of that wounded masculine that you held on for so long, because you're going to continuously find that in your relationship, because not all men are built the same. And just like not all women are built the same. Mm-hmm. And you need to let go of those imprints, because when a man comes to you and becomes vulnerable and you come lashing back at him as saying, that's not what a man should be, that is your own belief that once again you're putting on a man now that he should be a certain way rather than being his own way.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And that's, and you mean you and then the man is still trying to figure out what it means to be a man from the heart. And so how is he supposed to go through the process that you want, that all women want men to go through, to heal and get over the ego?
Yes.
But you need the space. Someone has to hold space, right? And because we as men, the way we were raised, we were shut off from our feminine so much, mm-hmm. because we were told the first thing that happens, the first trauma that a man goes through, don't cry.
Yeah, the worst trauma. That one drives me crazy. Men, cry it out. If a woman says don't cry, walk away from her straight up. Just walk away from her, because she's not going to be supportive in anything that you're doing. Cry it out. Go ahead, Mike, because now you're going to get me all fired up.
Right, I love it. So the first trauma that man goes through when he's about 4 years old, finally, is he's told men don't cry. And then he's shown that the men around him, they hold back emotion. They don't actually express. Mm-hmm. And so men grow up thinking that to be a man, you have to be this quiet calmness, but they don't know how to be that. To be quiet calmness, you have to be expressive. But because you shut down, you don't actually know how to handle your emotions. So you go through your teenage years. No wonder boys are so messed up and trying to figure out what's going on with themselves, because the whole definition of what a man is completely unclear, and they've been told to suppress the very things that create that connect them to the power of their mind, the emotions. Mm-hmm. Your subconscious is 90% of your brain volume and 1,000 times more powerful than your conscious, but your subconscious is an emotional mind. How are you supposed to tap into your brain and your full potential if you can't tap into your emotions?
And then you're wondering why kids have so much aggression, and then they're basically killing one another because they have to have this outlet to release this anger, and they're taking it out on society or whichever way they're taking it out. And then you're wondering something's wrong with the child. Yeah, because of all the belief systems that have been imprinted in them.
Right. And you know how men look at emotion up until they figure out how to deal with it? If an emotion comes up and it's not anger or rage or anything that's acceptable to be manly in today's ego-based definition of man, when an emotion of that's vulnerable comes up, you turn around, club it over the head like a baby seal and walk away. Like, this is basically like how a man deals with his emotions. He beats the shit out of his own emotions. He does not allow them through until they bottle up so much and they become anger. Right?
That just, I have no words. Go ahead.
Right. So, and so when I started going through my process, it was the first thing that started triggering it is anger. Anger is, why do I have this anger? Well, it's a feeling of abandonment. Why do I have abandonment? And all these things started coming up. And as I started dealing with those things, I finally decided I'm going to show myself mercy. Because this is the thing that men don't understand, that the aspect of the masculine has already, the masculine energy is an outward force. The feminine energy is a force, but it's more of a receiving force, right? Which is perfectly fine, because you have both of them within us. And the reason there's men and women is because we are embodiments of the majority aspects of those forces, and we come together. Right? This is what's happening. This is what you were talking about. We're all coming together, but we're all figuring it out, right? And so it's a matter of then having to cleanse yourself. So as I was allowing myself to reconnect in and allowing those emotions to come out, I would be crying. I would have to allow myself to purge 30 plus years of repressed emotion. Right?
I'm so sorry you had to go. Seriously, I am so sorry that you had to go through that, because it hurts me to feel that you had to hold in so much emotion for so many years. I cry at someone saying hi to me sometimes, and it's like, oh, why are you crying? I'm like, I don't know, just let me cry. But for a man, I understand it's so difficult, and for you to have to hold in that suppressed energy and to have to feel that you need to let it go. And I might think, it's taking so long to let it go, but letting the course of time bring healing to you. I understand that for some men, or even some women, we're talking about men now. This is about a man right now. If it takes you a month, or it takes you 2 months, or it takes you a year, just allow yourself to go through that process.
Right. And that's the thing, that men need support. We don't like to say we need support, right? We don't like to, right? And when I was to hear that men need support on something before, I'd be like, shut up, I don't need support, right? But yes, we can figure it out by ourselves, but it's we need the space to be able to go through that. We don't know what we're going to go through. We don't know how we're going to process it, or what it's going to be individually. But the more you allow yourself to let go, the more you need a space that supports. And that's the challenge, because there's still an So, in speaking with women about feminine energy, the world allows the feminine to release and to let go and to process. It does not know what to do with a man that needs to process.
Yeah, a woman's allowed to be vulnerable, but men are considered weak if they become vulnerable, because they're expressing from a different perspective. But yet vulnerability is sexy AF, meaning you are now tapping into the real Adonis of your birthright. You are now tapping into something more powerful than anything out there. And the more that you allow yourself to become expressive, there's going to be women that are not going to be supportive, because they have the wounded masculine within themselves, and they could have a relationship with their father that wasn't good. So now they're taking it on their partner or their lover or their spouse. So she has to go through the healing of that wounded masculine. It usually comes from the father, right? Or an old relationship that she still continues on the journey of her past. But this is something that not only when you become vulnerable, you will literally create this space within you to say, you know what? This is who I am, whether you like it or not. And this is what I had to go through, both healing all parts of me. You like it or not, it doesn't matter to me if you like me or not. This is who I am at my essence. This is who I am at my weakness, and this is who I am at my strength. And I feel that when men really allow themselves to shine and to really let go of these old stigmas and beliefs that were imprinted from childhood, like we're talking about, and even your teenage years, you know, how many girls did you sleep with? How many blowjobs did you get? It's like a winning champion race, like you're doing 100-meter, because you think that's going to show this massive masculinity, but at the end of the day, you're actually wounding yourself. And I did this. Listen, I'm a female, and I think I have a very strong masculine because I did the same thing to men, straight up. A woman could play a man's game as good as a man could play a woman's game, because we both have that. I get it. But it's really about becoming true to ourselves. And yeah, we go through these teenage years because we're running away from who we are in our own essence.
Absolutely. And it's, and you hit on so many points there. And it's something actually that I want to say right now that a lot of people don't realize. Okay. And when I describe this to people, it kind of opens up eyeballs. They're like, oh my God, I didn't even think of it that way. Because you mentioned teenage years. So here's another aspect that men go through as well. And women go through their own, right? But we're talking about men and what they go through, right? And so first of all, when we go through life, kids, boys and girls have equal access to love. Love from everybody. I mean, the boys and girls, doesn't matter. Everybody loves them, right? And they love they love each other as friends, brothers, sisters, whatever. They don't care. Then you hit the puberty, right? You get into puberty. I just said the puberty. You hit puberty, right? and what happens at that point is now girls still have access to that feminine love. And feminine love is different than masculine love. So we have to understand that, right? Girl, it's much more inviting, much warmer, just what it is. The feminine is that way. And boys at that time no longer have access to that love from the girls their own age, because now they have to win them over. They have to chase it. They have to earn it. So they're constantly looking to earn it. Right or wrong, I mean, it's also biology, right? I mean, that's how it is, right? It's just how it works, right? But men have to earn it. And then they're also looked at as men. They're no longer supported the same way. So they're not allowed to show, they're going through puberty and all the stuff that brings up. They're not allowed to show emotions. They weren't taught to handle emotions. Now they got all this anger and aggression coming up because, you know what, hey, puberty it is, right? And testosterone's flowing through them like there's no tomorrow. They have to earn love from girls, which means, and the girls, their programming kicks in. They're like, no, I can't give it away. I can't give love that easily. And so now they start to look at girls as just like a game of targets. Because otherwise you go crazy trying to be constantly denied it. All right. And so when a man is with a woman, he finally has access to feminine love, which is beautiful. When they break up, the woman has access to feminine love, which is very comforting, nurturing, and helps her stabilize. Man has nothing. She's got masculine support, but it's not the same. It's not to say the masculine is bad, but a lot of men don't know how to be through the heart. And bottom line is feminine love is the nurturing love that the planet runs on. And so all of a sudden we're cut away from that. So we're back to being deprived of feminine love. Right? We might have female friends, platonic friends, and all that stuff, but it's not as easy to come by for a man. Right? And so for a man to start becoming vulnerable within himself, it helps him now let go of that tension that he constantly carries within himself, that he can't allow weakness, can't allow this, can't allow that. He's constantly in a state of, he doesn't know it. I didn't know it until I started to let go. And I was like, oh my God, how much tension am I carrying? You're constantly in this state of tension. That's why even when you're with family, you're constantly trying to be the good guy, but you don't know how to get rid of all this tension. That's why you got to go out and hang out with the guys and just be right, and go to get drunk or whatever, right? Because you need that outlet, and it turns into it's like and then you feel good. But how can you live? But what about living without the need for that? If you start to learn and have the space and the allowance and learn how to figure out how to let it through you, you start to balance yourself, and you connect with your family in a completely different way. You don't have to live by a rule book. You understand the heart. You understand how to work with it, but you also understand this is me. Like you said, exactly like you said, I am man, I am centered, this is what I need. But because we're always chasing that love, there's another aspect here because, we also have, so there's that aspect, but there's also the aspect of when masculine and feminine are together, man and woman, there's, we all know how it works. Let's just call a spade a spade. The woman creates the honey-do list, and then the man does it, right? And so there's a dynamic there where, in a great setup, the man doesn't mind. The man actually really loves and lives for doing what the woman wants. But where it becomes unhealthy is when the man doesn't know how to express his own needs because he shut down his emotions. Mm-hmm. And then the woman gets angry and starts to put all these demands on the man, hoping the man's going to wake up and say what he wants, but he's just trying to please her. So he's like, what the fuck? Give me, oops, pardon my French, but what?
You could just be who you are.
Exactly, right? So it's like, what the fuck? I'm just trying to please you. Get off me. Give me some space. And she's like, but you got to be a man. I need you to. And he's like, shut up. I just want to watch TV and relax because I've got all the stress in me. I've got all this other stuff in me that I don't know I have and I don't know how to deal with.
And, I had this conversation with myself this morning, and I was like, because I was thinking about this podcast and I was thinking about the series that I'm guided to do. And I was just like, okay, I get all of this. I get the masculine energy. I've been, studying. I had the great pleasure of, meeting my twin flame and learning a lot through him and stuff like that. But I also think it's really important for men to get away with one another, like to have a guy's trip away and to really allow themselves to open up, to be who they are. And you know what? Even if, a dude's not like heart-centered and he's in that egotistical, but if you have those other friends that come from a heart center, he starts to awaken this peace within him that says, yeah, that feels kind of good, even though, fuck, dude, like, that's just so girly. It's like, no, man, like, you really are expressing this part of you that brings out this stronger energy, because now you become more expressive. And now you're able to communicate. And now you're able to say, these are my needs. These are your needs. These are our needs. So how can we work through our needs together so that we become all fulfilled? And through that fulfillment, we get to rise.
That's right. Yeah.
And this was the conversation I had with myself this morning. I was like, you know what? Like, girls have girl getaway weekends. I think every guy out there should have like a week with his homies to do what they want, of course, with reason, and not to be a bunch of, teenagers, to use their nougat and not the one between their legs, to recognize things. But at the end of the day, if that's who you are and that's the expressive side and you're single and you're not going to hurt anyone along the process, do what you feel like you got to do in order to release whatever you got to release. Go ahead. As long as you feel good doing it and don't come up feeling even more empty on the inside. But that's what came to me this morning. I was like, yeah, that's true. And then I thought, well, how could we support, like, how could the female that went through the healing of her masculine and feminine energy support the masculine to become this greater being that he is?
Yeah. And I mean, and so, yeah, and it's, so men have their getaways with the guys, but it's how you have them and the reason that you need for them. And there's I also believe, like, men and women women have to go to get the girls' time, and men have to go get the dude time, right? But a lot of people are doing that as an escape because they don't know how to be themselves to begin with, right? And that's where, there's the imbalance. And it's tough because I also understand as for women, either men are too much in their ego and the woman just wants the man to just be there for her and see her as, the soul, or men are so much in their feminine trying to figure out how to be a man but not be a dick, that they really, really need space with that. And so the women might turn around and they won't know, a lot of women don't know how to deal with that either, where they'll just walk all over them, right?
Yeah, right? I've seen both.
Both. It happens in different directions, right? And it really comes down to both men and women understanding masculine and feminine energies and how to tie together, right? Because masculine and feminine doesn't necessarily mean man and woman.
No.
Right? Masculine and feminine, this is where the world kind of gets a little confused, right? Masculine and feminine doesn't necessarily mean man and woman. It means masculine and feminine. There's a certain energy, and then most men are more so masculine, and most women are more so feminine, but there's both within one. And so when you start to block one aspect of yourself, you need the help from somebody outside of you to help fix that, right? Or
It's like
knowledge and awareness.
I don't want to say fix it, because you're really not fixing anything. You're rebirthing parts of you.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want men to feel that they need to be healed or that they're broken, because that's another thing that a lot of men go through. Like, you know, I don't need healing. No, homie, you don't need healing. But you know what? You need some love and rebirthing of who you truly are, because you have wounds in you, just like females have wounds in them. But you just got to let go of that, because you're not broken. You've just been imprinted with so many wounds that you need to rebirth the truth of who you are, like I said earlier, so that you could see things with a whole different light.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true. And that's the tough part, is it's that because men, we've developed so much of our self-image on being strong and not hurt, and to just say, look, you know what, I went through this and it did cause some hurt and I need to just let go of it, is a big deal. And so we do need to make that space, like you're saying, and say, like, look, there's nothing wrong with it, whichever way you want to say it. Just learn to not learn, but find whatever you need to find within you to allow yourself to let go. You need to allow yourself the mercy. Like, find it how to be merciful on yourself. You don't need mercy from anybody else. You don't need the handouts. You've survived and made it to where you are by yourself. You've got the power, bro. But seriously, most of men haven't discovered how to be merciful on themselves, and just within themselves allow themselves to let go.
Could you define the let go? Because a lot of people always say, like, what is this let go? For me, it's working through things, but could you just define what let go means for you?
That's a good point. Letting go is to admit that in some cases, that you were hurt, and that's okay.
Letting go means, for a lot of us men, not stopping ourselves from beating up the emotions that are coming up. Because a lot of men will prevent them from coming up to begin with. Okay. Right? And so a lot of men will just fight the fact that they're about to feel an emotion. And that's where we start bottling it up. So letting go is learning to allow that to come up in whatever way you need to come up. Now, at first, there might be some anger, some yelling, find the safety, and whatever it is, just like yell outside, sure. But then there might be other stuff that comes up. It's for women, the emotion comes up and you process it outwardly in whatever way it comes. But for a man, we literally say, oh, this is about to be a bad emotion, right? Or we just beat the shit out of it. So we fight our own selves. We're in this constant inner struggle and fight. Or we've numbed ourselves so much, we've suppressed so much our emotion that we don't even know what it means, right? And so there's a process now that we have to start going through. And unfortunately, usually it's triggered by us going through some sort of trauma, right? And our trauma then gives us no choice but to deal with what we were dealing with. So for a guy that's not going through that trauma and wants to wake up, you really just have to start finding other avenues. Maybe you want to do a voice blog for yourself and just speaking whatever is going on through your head, or journaling or something. But you have to start triggering this pattern of processing and letting go, right? And that is, and there's coaching that we can do around that kind of stuff, right? There's the different approach for somebody that's kind of hit a bit of a wall and now wants to deal with it, versus somebody that feels like they just need to be better. They want to be their more authentic self somehow. But it all comes down to expression in the beginning. And for a man, it really is, it's either you've bottled it up for so long, you don't know yourself to be any different. Because there's a reason that men generally are seen to not be as expressive or not be as good with their words. And it's not that we don't have the potential. It's just that we've suppressed our words for so long, so many of us. And again, I'm talking generalities, right? Because there's a lot of men that be looking at that. No, I'm not depressed. And like, look, bro, if you're hearing this and it's kind of triggering you a little bit, it's okay. There's all sorts of variability within that spectrum, but generally that's what happens to men, right? And so it's a matter of learning to express at the moment, in the moment. And learning to express in a healthy way, not just blurting it out, but learning to express in a healthy way. So a lot of men will take a time out, think about it, that's okay. But a lot of men won't do anything. They won't even express it. They'll just suppress. Most men will just suppress.
Yeah, and I just want to ask you this. So if you're not expressing it, do you feel that it will continuously pop up for you until you let it go, until you've brought attention to it? Or is it something that you put deep into this container and ignore? Or does it show up again?
Most guys think that they just ignore it, but they don't realize the pattern repeats. If you don't deal with something, it shows up whether you realize it's creating it or not, right? The fact that you react in a certain way is bringing more of that to you. And until the fact that you have this emotion that's triggered by certain things, not allowing yourself to process the emotion or understand the emotion, learn how to work with it, is actually preventing you from eliminating the reason that you react that way to begin with. So not going into and learning how to work with your emotions and be expressive of them is actually preventing you from being more masterful of yourself and being more empowered through your masculinity to begin with. Because you will never address what's causing the trigger, because you always suppress the emotion that's caused by the trigger.
Do you find that if you're not expressing that, or you're not releasing it or holding space for it, that it could affect your relationships, regardless if it's with a female or another male, just your relationships in general?
Absolutely. I mean, up until recently, men haven't been, so here's an example of relationships with men, between men. Most men can't say, I love you, bro. They can't. They're like, whoa, what are you saying? Listen, I'm not that kind of guy. Like, dude, I just love you as my bro. But a lot of guys are like, whoa, right? And there's another example, and I know the generation coming up nowadays is a lot more accepting of this for themselves, this opportunity to express a little bit of love, but not really as much as it should be. I'll give you an example. I remember my first hug to another guy my age.
Wow.
I remember that. It was in grade 10 after we won the football championships. We gave each other a hug. Like, for somebody to remember a hug with somebody of the same gender from a certain point on, like, you shouldn't have to remember that. You shouldn't have to be like, this doesn't have to be a big thing. It's a freaking hug. But I remember the moment I hugged another bro out of sheer joy of the moment.
Yeah. And you know what the funny thing is? It's interesting that you say that, because I do have male clients that I work with, and I hug everyone, because once you put that heart to heart with one another, you do an activation with sometimes that you don't realize it. And I have a male client, I had a male client, and I would always hug him, and I could tell he was so distant. Like, he felt so uncomfortable just hugging. And I'd be like, come here, let me give you a hug. I want to activate you into this love phrase. He's like, this is uncomfortable for me. I'm like, oh, better believe I know it's uncomfortable for me. And I said to him, and he goes, Zach, it's not. He goes, I just think it's wrong to hug you. And I said, no, it's not. It's not. I said, the belief system that was imprinted in you. And yeah, I understand you're married, but listen, I'm just hugging you because I have love for you. I want to share that love with you. And you know what? I did this 3, 4, 5 times. And I remember when he would finish his sessions with me, and I was doing this was like face to face, he'd run out the door, and I'd be like, I'm going to catch you next time, But it was so uncomfortable for him to give me a hug. And I understood, because I could hear spirit say, hug him. And I'm like, it's uncomfortable for him. They're like, it's okay, because it's something within him. He wants it so bad. He wants that love so bad, but he's blocking himself away from receiving that love. And he contacted me not too long ago, and he said, I'm getting a divorce. And now he said he met another woman, that his heart is now opening up.
Beautiful. That's an incredible thing to hear. And and unfortunately, you have to go through certain experiences in life for a man to do that. But and we all go through these healing experiences that have opened us up to different things that happen in life, right? But it's really, yeah. And men need it. They may not know they need it, but they need it. And men become so uncomfortable with that, and it affects their relationships, because if you can't be in terms of your own emotions, how can you help somebody or connect with somebody else with their emotions? Mm-hmm. And this is why guys come follow all these rule books that men make up about how to be with their wife. Well, you got to do this, bring her flowers, do all this stuff. But if you start being through the heart, there's almost like no need for a rule book. You just kind of connect.
Yeah.
But both of you have to be that way, or to a certain extent. At the very least, to have open conversations, right? And so it affects all your relationships, because you can't really have a true open conversation, right? And, men will form relationships with men that are, that they relate to, which is fine. So, you don't have to have a heart-centered conversation with a man all the time, right? You used to play ball hockey and you just hang around in a locker room, talk about beer. But to me, that wasn't exactly the conversation I wanted. But this is the conversations men have that they choose. Some men will have those conversations that they choose them. But as long as, it doesn't matter what conversations you expose yourself to, as long as you start to allow yourself to express your emotions and not suppress them, learn whatever it is. It's all going to be individual. That's the thing. Everybody has to, you have to want to, first of all, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, everything has to be about you wanting to. And then you have to go through your own process of understanding how to flow through that. And this is where, like, you and me really want to help guys with this. It really, some of it just becomes a one-on-one. It has to be, because it becomes a one-on-one because every guy will have a slightly different need, right? Mm-hmm. And so it could be this group aspect, and then you really have to help the guy learn what it means for himself to let go. Because you have that question, what does it mean to let go? Okay, well, we have to have these understandings. We have to develop this understanding, because it really is something that every man has to connect with, right?
Yeah. And I find love truly is a form of communication, because the more you could communicate, the more you allow yourself to open up. And as people say women are great communicators, I don't really fully believe in that. I find that we all have a difficult form of communicating, because we're afraid that to express ourselves, regardless if you're a man or a woman, I don't care at this point, because I've been through it. I know other women that are going through it, and it's huge, because you want to express yourself, but first and foremost, you're afraid you're not going to get what you want in return. Second, you feel like you're afraid you don't want to hurt someone. Third, it's like, well, how are they going to receive that? And are they going to be angry towards me because now I'm asking for something that they might not be comfortable even, expressing themselves. So I find when you're communicating from that place of love, and I know it sounds so touche, right? Like love, 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 but it's really about opening that heart up and say, you know what, this is what I want. It's like, even when you're, making love, having sex, having a little quickie, whatever it may be, it's like when you know how to turn on a man, or how to a woman to turn on, as a woman to turn on a man, or a man to turn on a woman, when you know that through energetic connection, you're actually communicating on such a different level that the energy now knows, but now let's find words to put into that, because it becomes so explosive and so expressive that you start activating different parts of you. That for women, your masculine gets healed, and then for the masculine, your feminine gets healed. And now you've built this beautiful unity between the both of you, I believe, that, right. That communication becomes easier and easier and easier. And it's like, taking a little baby has to crawl before they could walk. You have to take these different steps. So how is it that you got started on your path? Like, what was your biggest aha moment that brought you onto this path to help other men tap into their innate abilities of who they are?
Okay. It was my own healing. It was my own realization, right? So I started going through this healing process. Took me whatever time it took me. It took me a while, but as I started to realize in my healing process, I realized I can't go any further until I start tapping into these other aspects of me, my own feminine, my own everything, right? And then as I started tapping into them, I started to shift so much that I started to see the difference between me and many other men around me, where before I never realized the difference. I just, we were all just, acting the same way. And I realized there's so much power and potential for men. It's limitless. And it's just a matter of, and a lot of men live their lives. You see the way that a lot of men live their lives. They may say like, I'm fine. You don't tell me about what I need. I'm fine. But at the same time, there's so much more empowerment that came through to me, that and so much more balance, and so much, it's such a better way of approaching life and dealing with the world and my own self mastery, that I can't not help others that are seeking it find it, or actually just spread awareness about it. To tell you the truth, it's some men just need to hear it a few times, and then they start to approach it and start opening up to it a little bit here and there, right? But if nobody's talking about it, if very few people are talking about it, somebody needs to, and I feel very passionate about it, because my healing and the real breakthroughs that I had in my life were because of me healing my masculine. And there's not a lot of examples out there or places where men can go to really understand how to heal that completely. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the feminine has been healing. It's rising, but the masculine has so much more than just what we've been taught to be. I can't imagine not being an advocate for that, or helping other men tap into that, right? Yeah. And there's so much, and as a guy, like, there's other benefits, guys, we were talking before, but there's other benefits that come through with this. And the benefit being that once you start to tap into your heart, the way that you approach sex is completely different. Mm-hmm. And what you're able to do is completely different. Like, there is such thing as a male internal orgasm, but you can't have it if you're not in your heart. Literally, you can't have it if you don't know how to be in your heart, because that energy has to go somewhere. And if it's not going, if it's building up where it builds up normally, it's going out. Mm-hmm. And it's all energy. When you're in your heart, that energy can rise back into you, go through your body, and then you are alive. Oh, there's this like sense of being alive that, whoo, right? It's like, it's like, I never understood, like, how can women have so much energy after an orgasm and then pass out? Well, it's like, we lose energy. Women, the energy goes into the reproductive organs, gets all charged up, goes back into your body, and all of a sudden, bam! And you're doing everything after. And whatever you want to do, you're wired, you're ready to go, you're awake all night, right? And so, as a man, you can tap into that too, but you can't tap into it if you don't know how to be in your heart. That's the whole trick. It's the whole thing was like, oh my God, dude, if you want to just master that, you gotta learn how to tap into your heart. Yeah. So I'm working on a program for guys with that too, to help them tap into all of that, right? And so that's gonna come up. It'll happen eventually. It's something that I've learned, and I want to help other guys learn the same, right?
Yeah, I typically learned from one of my teachers, and he taught tantric. And when he told me that, you should teach your man not to ejaculate, I was like, what? Wait, did you repeat that? And he says, yeah, a man needs to hold his ejaculation, and then he becomes even more powerful. And I'm like, does that mean he could go like 2, 3, 4, 5 times? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I think every man should hold his ejaculation for 10 times, because if he could continuously go for 6, 7, 8 hours, this is gold, man. This shit's awesome. And, my teacher looked at me and goes, you want to go for 8 hours? I'm like, dude, I want to go for a weekend. And he just thought, oh, God. But then I learned, I kept on saying to, my partners, I'd be like, hold it in, because then we could go again after, and they'd look at me going, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know. But you have to study how you can hold in your ejaculation, because you become a powerful Adonis. You're an Adonis now, baby, but you become even more powerful in your Adonis, right? And they would look at me like I had 5 heads. And I'm just like, one day I will find that person that can hold it in, So it's great. Mike, you need to teach everyone how to do that. And it's true, because some guys would be like, you want to go again? We just ended. And it's just like, yeah, man, let's do it. And they're just like, I'm tired. Give me 10 minutes. It's like, My teacher told me you could be able to go over and over and over if you hold in your ejaculation. So we need to practice that. And it really awakened me. This is, 5 years ago when I think 5 or 6 years ago when I learned this, and it really awakened me to like look at myself because, like we said, the yin and the yang, and to really support men in this and to awaken myself in this. And, I was able to go through 22 years of self-healing and another 4 years of my masculine healing and really letting go of a lot of things when it came to masculine, coming into like that balance. But to be able to support a man and to awaken to a man and to feel the true essence of a man, not hiding behind the mask, like that is the biggest turn on. And you hear women say that, men working on themselves is sexy AF. It's like, it is, but you know what, women, we need to support the men and appreciate them, for all those things. But how is it you would like to be supported by women? Because that's a huge question that I'm asking men right now. Like I said earlier, this is the era for the men rising. Women had 2018 as their rising, but I think there's a lot of wounds when it came to that. So how is it that you'd like to be supported by a woman on this journey that you're
on? It would just be like honor when I say something, or make it okay for me to say something no matter how hard it is for me to say it because I don't know how to express emotion. Right? And a lot of women, and I sense the frustration from women too, because the reason that most women harp on their men is because they're not necessarily trying to make them do stuff. They're trying to get them to be something, to be the man. So what does that mean, right? And that's the whole process that a man has to go through, understand all of that. But don't beat him down trying to get something out of him. Because he's already stressed out enough as it is. He's already going through a lot of tension to begin with. So the man has to know that he wants to change. And sometimes you just have to have a real conversation with him and say, listen, this is where I'm at. I'm not getting what I want, and see what happens, right? Sometimes. I'm not saying just go off and put ultimatum. It's not about an ultimatum. The one thing for a man is don't give him an ultimatum, because that's just like,
yeah.
But if I'm a man that knows I need to unlock myself and want to start going through this process, I just need the woman to be okay with me showing vulnerability, to show me how vulnerability is sexy, and to show me how vulnerability is acceptable, and to help me understand that because I'm showing what I perceive weakness, it's not actually weakness, and it's okay. Because the thing that a man is not okay with is to be weak, because when you're weak, we were taught growing up, when you're weak, you don't get the girl. And if you're weak, the girl leaves you. Because it happened to us when we were young as teenagers. Women went through their stuff, men went through our stuff, right? And so when we were teenagers, a girl was going through whatever she needed to go through, and a lot of men experienced, I'm no longer as good looking or as fit or whatever as the other guy. And she's gone to a guy that's more fit, better looking, or stronger in his outward expression of himself, right? Or outwardly, perceivedly stronger. Women went and find the stronger man sexy. It still happens now. So what's the definition of strong for a man? Muscles and attitude. So you got to help a man let go of that definition, that best suit that he developed when he was a kid, and that society and potentially even his female partner may still be holding towards him. So the woman needs to redefine sometimes what is sexy to her, and then really look at herself and see what is sexy actually, right? Let's be honest. There's always the physical attraction is always a big part of it, right? Like, we're not going to say like, okay, be a sloth. Men are attracted to women a certain way. Women, like, you have that picture you showed me before. Like, there's sexiness to physical thing, right? But we have to start really evaluating what sexy is overall, and what is sexy as a man, and really putting it out there.
Yeah, I like that you said that, because, I have women say, that guy's sexy. I'm like, yeah, when he doesn't open his mouth, I'm sure. And I've had women say, that's rude. And I'm like, no, I could actually feel that just looking at him. Yeah, he's sexy on the external, but the internal, that just turns me off. And women are like, whoa, those are some harsh words. And I said, no, but it's the truth. You know what's sexy?
Yep.
A guy that could be fully who he is, a guy that could cry on my shoulder if he feels like he needs to release, a guy that could tell me exactly what he wants. Like, you know, that is sexy to me. Not a guy that comes up because he could bench press 500. I couldn't care less. I couldn't care less what your bank account's at either, because guess what, sweetheart? Money is fluid out there. We can make that money together. But when you know what you want and what you want to create for yourself, now that is sexy. And I'm finding that, you know, when you said this earlier, is, telling her man, like a man, like what is it, a definition of a man for her? Well, it doesn't really matter to me what I think of a definition of a man for a man, because I want him to be truly who he is and that masculine that he is, right? So my definition would be like that burly guy, but it's not that burly guy, because I've dated hot guys that I said, you know what, you are better looking when you just keep quiet. And I've actually said that to guys before, and they just like, that's rude. I'm like, it's the truth, but maybe I should not be in this relationship right now, right? So it taught me a lot of how I perceive men, you know? Because I dated the hot six-pack guy that went to the gym and had this, strong thing. But then I kind of scratch my head and go, really? I just don't even want you to talk. So that's rude, right? I get it. It's rude. But then I realized maybe that's not the guy that I want to date. And maybe that's something that was an imprint of me, of how I perceive men. And I had to go through that healing process of how I saw men. I mean, then I dated a guy that he wouldn't be the guy that I would ever date. But then these crazy emotions came up, and it's just like, yo, this is crazy. I've never felt this way for a guy before, but he isn't anything. He isn't that six pack or the person I would date, period. But man, this heart of mine is like playing some badass tricks on me right now. Yeah, that's what I had to learn. And it's so funny, because when I get women to write, I have a lot of women that come to me and they're like, I want to find the right man. I'm like, okay, so write what you want a man to offer you. And they're like, oh, I know that. I'm like, perfect. Now write what you have to offer a man. Oh, so you know the kind of man you want, but you don't know what kind of things you have to offer him. So let's work on that, because that means you're wounded. That means that you're suffering in some sort of pain from your past, that I'm not going to allow you to bring that into a present relationship. So that's why these conversations are really important with men and women. And, like I said, I always say this, I don't know where the series is going to go, but I have another show idea, which is going to be fantastic when it comes to the masculine and feminine energies. But I just really right now want men and women, this is the universe wants right now, and I'm speaking because I'm channeling, is the universe wants men and women to really come together, to really be able to express how they're feeling without any judgment. If a man's crying on your shoulder, don't be like, dude, like, suck it up and stop crying. No, you let him cry it out. And that's what I want all the women to know that are so-called awakened, is that you don't tell someone to suck it up. Just like you're able to cry on his shoulder when something hurts, you better let him cry on your shoulder when something hurts him. And I think these conversations that are coming forward, because I'm not having this conversation with you right now, this is like the Adonis in me coming through that's having this conversation with you and everyone else. It's like, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to feel so-called weak, but what is weak? Because in that weakness, there's always strength. And that's why I want to say I appreciate men from every level, from the wound that was inside of me to the strength that's inside of me. I appreciate men, and I see men for who they are, even in that sign of what they would say their strength is probably most likely their weakness, and their weakness is most likely their strength. But great thing that, I see you in your light, and I appreciate you, because you know what, you had to go through a journey, and you had to deal totally different than what I had to go through the journey. So thank you, Mike, for shedding light and helping the divine masculine, because you had to help yourself go through this, and really allowing a man to be the man that he perceives himself to be, not the imprints or the beliefs of another person of who he should be. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And thank you, Zach, for putting all this together, because this is amazing. And if anybody if any woman would be, like, men need the help, not the help, but men need the support. And the fact that you're doing that is incredible. And you've got the right, everything all about you to be able to support men with that. And you've also helped me a lot in my past. So I really thank you for all of that you've done. And this is somebody, I'm glad that you're doing this and that you've got that amazing voice that you're putting out there to help men with the healing process that we all need to go through right now to find our divinity. And I can't, you know, I can't hold myself back anymore I am stepping forward into taking that role as well, and to being able to help men through that. And I love the fact that we got connected and that you set this up and that you had me on the show. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. So for anyone that feels aligned and connected to work with Mike, all his social handles, his email and his website are in the show notes below. Guys, I honor you. I respect you. I appreciate you for who you are, your wounds and your light, and really allow yourself to shine in that divine masculine that you are, because the world needs not only the feminine energy to rise, but needs the masculine energy to rise. And I honor and support that in all ways that I can in my highest light, to shine light onto your path and to really create the life that you want to create with the partner that you want to create, whichever way that looks for you. So connect with Mike if you feel aligned with him, and, you know, catch us next week on Awakened Men Mondays for our next episode. Until we connect again, stay blessed, stay masculine, baby, because that's the hottest thing you could do. Bye for now.
Much love. Goodbye.